Hello, I'm Kurt Bassuener of the Democratization Policy Council here in Sarajevo. This is the first episode in an occasional series of short programs where we try to explain political dynamics in countries that we're following. In this particular case, I'm looking specifically at Bosnia and Herzegovina and trying to explain why there's been no durable forward movement in Bosnia now that we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement. Why we've had this sort of parabola of progress and then regression for the past 10 years. I'll do this by way of a simple chart. One might even say simplistic, but think of Bosnia and Herzegovina's political dynamic as having three layers of main actors. At the top, you have the international community. This has been led pretty much without challenge by the European Union since 2006, with the hope of ultimately bringing Bosnia and Herzegovina into the UN and NATO as well. The next layer is the Bosnian political class. This is sort of an amalgam because they're basically all the same people, same crowd, political, business, organized crime, and media nexus. These are the people who drive around in the black Audis when the Pope drives around in the Ford Focus. And then down here you have the citizens of this country. Now, once upon a time, not all that long ago, up until 2006, the political elites had to look up, because politics is a for-profit enterprise, and the International High Representative, in charge of overseeing the implementation of the Dayton Peace Agreement, was the main representative of the international community for the first 10 years of Dayton implementation, post-war. And since politics is a for-profit enterprise, being removed from office or banned from political life is bad for business. They never really had to look down. Despite repeated elections, this is really an oligarchy. We pretend is a democracy, and I say this as an American because we midwifed it at Dayton. The two main tools the political elites use to maintain popular consent, which is necessary for any government, are fear and patronage. And the only enforcer of the post-war order was the international community. Even issues where the domestic authorities had authority, which was most issues, getting them to exercise that authority, as in the case of the Constitutional Court, or getting that implemented by the political leadership, took leverage from on high. About 2005, the thinking was that the state building project had been so successful that it would be self-propelled, that the political elites would drive Bosnia and Herzegovina forward into the European Union and NATO under their own power, without pressure. The phrase at the time was moving from the push of Dayton to the pull of Brussels. So this connection broke. The idea was we don't need enforcement tools anymore. We just need the carrot of EU membership. And that will get them to act in their own interest and the popular interest. Effectively, what that did was it created a rules-free environment. It became playtime for the Bosnian political elite. Yes, the rules still existed, but they weren't enforced. So effectively, from 2006 until now, there are no rules. And I think that shows in the behavior of the political elites, the shamelessness with which they operate. Everybody down here is a rational actor. It's just that all the incentives are perverse. If you're not sure that your vote is secret, and you have a relative, Uncle Jovan, who's working in government, you're not likely to vote against the powers that be. You might stay home, and almost half the voters did. Now, the main value added of international actors is to disarm the political elites of their two fundamental tools, without which they have no legitimacy in the popular sense. The first is fear. European Union has this responsibility, which it took on from NATO 11 years ago, to maintain a safe and secure environment. The difference now is, whatever your worst fear is, from wherever you are in the country, it now seems more plausible than it did a decade ago because of the retreat of external actors and the assumption that these guys were going to operate in the public interest. The second main tool is patronage, and this is fueled, I say this as an American taxpayer, with our money. Through the International Monetary Fund, our money funds their patronage system through the IMF, through the World Bank, through the EBRD, through other mechanisms. And without that, they couldn't pay pensions and salaries. Now, if you disarm the political elites of these tools, they're really in trouble because they don't have anything left. Now, how do we move forward? It has to be a pincer movement. There has to be pressure from both above and below on the political elites to leave them only one direction that they can go, the right way. They're not going to do the right thing for the right reasons, so you make them do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Now, but that presupposes, it necessitates a link here between citizens and the international community, and particularly the European Union. This is where it gets hard for the EU, because the EU is used to assuming that politicians are democratically accountable. We saw in the floods last year that they're not democratically accountable, certainly not above the municipal level. It was a complete government failure with the partial exception of the army. There are many practical ways this sort of pressure could be applied. Very briefly, one concrete example is on the agriculture question. You have an enormous complement of people who rely on agriculture, and not just farmers, for their livelihoods, who have lost a good chunk of their livelihoods thanks to the absolute lack of concern of their political elites. Had there been a Bosnian Ministry of Agriculture prior to Croatia's entry into the EU, market access never would have been lost. So throughout the acquis, there are many opportunities to apply this pressure. What we really need from the EU is creativity and a willingness to admit that they got it wrong. So that, in a nutshell, is the political dynamic as it is and how it could be. Feel free to follow up with us at Democratization Policy Council. We're at democratizationpolicy.org. Our email is info@democratizationpolicy.org. You could find a copy of this chart here in PDF form in both English and in Bosnian, Serbian, Croatian, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for your attention.